Bonjour à tous. Donc, bienvenue au Théâtre Maiden qui nous accueille pendant le festival pour ces conversations. Merci d'être si nombreux. Je rappelle qu'il y a des casques. La conversation sera faite en anglais. Voilà. Alors, nous allons assister aujourd'hui donc à une conversation exceptionnelle avec l'une des plus grandes figures cinématographiques de notre époque, lauréate de 2 Oscars et de bien d'autres prix dans le monde, dont la carrière a marqué plusieurs générations. Madame Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster incarne une trajectoire rare, actrice prodige, devenue réalisatrice engagée, figure profondément respectée du cinéma mondial. Elle a traversé plus de 50 ans d'histoire du cinéma avec une exigence, une intelligence et une audace qui forcent l'admiration. La conversation d'aujourd'hui sera menée par Andrea Picard, programmatrice du festival, critique de cinéma et curatrice d'art, dont le regard précis et l'expertise reconnue offriront un cadre idéal pour cet échange. Je vous souhaite une bonne conversation.
Thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful privilege for us. Melita had some wonderful words for Jodie. We're so happy to have you in Marrakech.
Thank you.
Is this your first time here?
It's my first time here, but it won't be my last.
No,
Yes,
we'll want you
it's
back.
It's a great visit.
So Jodie also was the recipient of one of our tribute awards, and the ceremony was last night.
Yes.
I have to say it was a very moving ceremony, and I was very emotional about the clip reel, actually. The breadth of your work was there, and then it was as if there was a reminder of watching you grow up on screen. It was quite beautiful. And as part of that tribute, we are also screening Vie Privée, which screened last night, as a gala, which is the new film by Rebecca Zlotowski. And Rebecca, are you here?
Rebecca's here. Thank you.
There she is.
Voilà.
And we're also screening Panic Room, The Beaver, which you directed, and one more film. Silence of the Lambs, of course. Just to let everybody know, this conversation is being recorded, so if you would like to revisit it on the website, it will be available later. I'm going to start with a few questions. This is a very formidable career you have.
Thank you.
You've been in the industry for almost 60 years. And it's a daunting task to tackle it in a 1-hour conversation, but I promise you there will be time for questions because I know you have many questions for Jodie. I'm going to show a few clips as some of the main films, and hopefully that will open into your insights, your desires, your challenges, but I hope you don't mind me starting with an interview you gave when you were 14 years old.
Oh, no.
No. Oh, yes. I'm going to fangirl for a moment. This was after you had done Taxi Driver with Martin Scorsese, an interview you gave with Interview Magazine with Andy Warhol.
Okay.
And you demonstrated such maturity. It was incredible. And also wit and perspicacious. But this is the quote that I'd like to begin with. They were asking you about your method, and you said, "It's a different approach, that's all. I'm sure maybe that I have a method locked up there somewhere, but it's an unconscious one, and I enjoy it. Why make a job out of it?"
Oh, wow. Okay.
Isn't that great? And what a job it has been.
Yeah. Well, it's a lifetime. I mean, I think that's something when you start working before even your memory really starts. You don't really know anything else, and you get very used to the idea of seeing yourself from the inside and from the outside simultaneously. And I feel blessed by that because I feel like I did away with some of the self-consciousness that a lot of actors have to, struggle with a lot in their lives. But also, it's a very strange way to be in the world. I don't know if it's made me crazier or if it's made me saner. I'm not sure. It's one of the two.
But do you still have that same enthusiasm that you had expressed then? And if you do, what do you account for that after all of these roles?
Well, I just love movies. And that really is the secret, that I'm just a big movie lover, and I always have been and I always will be. I think my favorite day is to get up in the morning, maybe do a little skiing, and then the rest of the day watch movies and eat. Like, that's it. That's all I ever want to do.
Sounds like a great life.
But yeah, because I've done it for so long, my interest wanes a lot. I don't want to repeat things that I've done before. I also get very insecure if I haven't worked for a long time, but I've done a lot of publicity tours. So, the publicity tours are confusing because there's a lot of people talking about your past or all the things that you've done, and it makes me feel like they're lying and I don't know what I'm doing, and that I have to go back out and prove myself again and make a film. So I feel most myself, I think, when I'm making movies.
So in terms of taking stock, you'd rather just move forward?
Yeah, I remember when I was, maybe in my 20s, mid-20s, I made a lot of movies back to back, and I would come home, and every time I came home, I'd send more boxes home. But then I'd go off and I'd make another movie, and then I'd come home and there'd be a bunch more boxes. And this went on for a number of years, and I realized I never opened the boxes. I just never bothered opening the boxes that were coming from the past or any of that. I will never see the movies again, probably, that I've made. Yeah, I think it's the only way to deal with it, is just to keep moving forward. Yeah.
I hope you'll forgive us for unboxing today. We're going to go through the trajectory in some ways. When I was choosing clips for this talk, this is going to sound like a very banal observation, but some of your characters swear a lot.
Oh.
And I thought, there's something to this, but it's very much, I think, representative of the grit and tenaciousness and a lot of the characters that you're drawn to. Would you say there's like an overarching, not inspiration, but what do you look for in characters?
Well, there's some things I look for, I suppose, but what's most interesting is what I'm not even aware that I'm searching for. So I have been drawn to very strong characters. I was as a young person, and when I was younger, I wanted to be central. I didn't want to be the sister of, the wife of, the daughter of, the girlfriend of. I just wanted the movie to be about me, and I wanted it to be a solitary journey. I wasn't really that interested in who I was in relationship to others. I really wanted to make movies that was about my journey and my transformation. And so, of course, I was terrifically self-centered, like all of us, for all of those years, but also reacting to a kind of second wave feminist interests of saying, I want to matter. I want to make movies that matter. I want to make movies where I'm a human being as opposed to just the girlfriend or the object of. And so those unconscious decisions are kind of interesting. I played a lot of victims, for example, in my first, the first 30 years of my life without really understanding why. And then as you get older, you start looking at the pattern. You start looking behind the rearview mirror and start understanding why it is that you picked the things that you did.
I think a lot in terms of, I'm also a cinema programmer, and we think a lot about filmographies, no tourism, and bodies of work. And of course, you're a filmmaker, but I also think the body of work is slightly, we could call it a tourist in terms of your acting work. And what would you, if forced to, what would be that singularity of vision?
Well, some of it is just how I got there. I would never have chosen to be an actor. I don't have the personality of an actor. I'm not somebody that wants to dance on a table and sing songs for people. It's actually just a cruel job that was chosen for me as a young person, which I don't remember starting. So right there, it makes my work a little bit different because I am not interested in acting just for the sake of acting. If I was on a desert island, I think probably the last thing that I would ever do is act. So I was just trying to survive. I was put in a job that I had no capabilities for. I'm kind of an intellectual person. I was as a child. I was a reader. I was solitary. And then I was put in a job where people said, okay, now pretend that's your grandfather and cry. And I was like, oh. how do I do that? So I had to, by survival, have to learn to be somebody who lived more emotionally, more spiritually and psychologically. I wasn't born that way. And it means that my choices have been different, I think, and that my acting style is different, and that I'm interested in different things than a lot of other people. And because it's so challenging for me to act, I don't do it as often. I need to recover. I need a lot of recovery time, so I get very picky about what I do and what I don't do.
You've earned that right, definitely.
Thank you.
In terms of those choices and those decisions and that agency, that came very early. I would like to talk about the transition of making children's films, and then meeting Martin Scorsese, and then going, you made Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and then Freaky Friday, which was a Disney film, and then Taxi Driver, and that seems so radical to me. Could you take us back to that moment?
Yeah. Well, also before then, so I started at 3. I did, ads and all that kind of stuff. By 6, I was on a pretty successful television series, and I did a lot of television from probably 6 to about 12. And then I did my first film at 6, kept working, and then at 12, I stopped making TV. So I didn't make TV again until a few years ago as an actor. So there was a whole bunch of work that happened before I started work with Scorsese. I did a lot of Disney movies, and I did cartoons. I mean, I worked. So I had a different vision of what an actor's life was. I thought it was just that somebody would give you a script, you would read the lines, you would learn the lines, maybe you would question a few of the lines, and then you would be told to act naturally. That's all I thought it was, and I thought, wow, this is not an interesting job. This is not enough for me. When I went to do Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro kind of took me under his wing, I guess, and he'd meet me at my hotel room, with my mom, and my mom would hand me off, and then he would take me to these coffee shops, and we'd run the lines again. We'd run the lines, and we'd run the lines, and then that happened a second time and a third time. And I'm sure maybe some of you have been here when Robert De Niro is here, are one of our greatest American actors. So proud to have worked with him. Not the most interesting person on earth. And at that time, he was very much in character the way he was in those days. So he was really uninteresting. And I remember having these lunches with him and just being like, oh, when is this? What is happening? When can I go home? And he wouldn't really be able to talk to me, so I would talk to the waiters, and I would talk to people in the restaurant. But then he finally kind of walked me through improvisation by the time we had our sort of third lunch together. And it opened my eyes to what acting could be. And I realized, at 12, oh, it's my fault because I haven't brought enough to the table. I've been just saying lines and waiting for my next line and acting naturally, but building a character is something different. And I remember how excited I was. I remember being kind of sweaty and excited and giggly and coming back up into the hotel room, up the elevator to meet my mom and saying, like, I've had this epiphany. And I think from there, everything changed.
I think this is a perfect time. We do have a small clip from Taxi Driver,
Okay.
So let's roll that one. There's so much about that scene that I love. It's simple, but also you can feel a childlike energy in the fidgeting and the way that you're putting the jam on the bread and the glasses. And then as the scene goes on, there's actually another pair of glasses that you pull up. And you don't see the glasses before that, so it's like this surprise moment. All of these little choices. How much did you have to do with that, and how much is on the page?
I had nothing to do with those choices. That was Martin Scorsese. He had met with a girl. Actually, she's in one of these scenes. She was a prostitute. Maybe she was probably, at that point, she was probably 18 or 19, but she'd been on the streets for a long time. And, she was a bit of a drug addict, and that was her thing, lots of sugar on the bread, and she had a bunch of sunglasses. And so he gave that gift to me. And, I think the thing that's odd and wonderful about the casting of me at that time, why it's not me, is that I'm playing a hypersexualized character, right, in a job that's a job that has to do with sexuality, and yet there's a total humanness and a kidness and a strength of character to who she is, as if those two things could go together in a way. So it's a very odd mix of that. I think that's what makes it so strange and wonderful, is that I'm miscast for the role. Right. The miscasting, I think, is what makes it so good.
And you feel that in this scene, at least I do, with the
but,
way that you're eating. And
if you can imagine, I was 12 years old, and I went to a uniform French school, with a little patch that said "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. And a little blue blazer, and I wore knee socks, and I skateboarded, and I did not want to wear hot pants and big high platform shoes. It just it was just such an odd pairing that I think that's why it's such good casting.
And did you feel a distance to the character, or was there any apprehension in getting ready for the role?
No, I'm not really sure what I did to get ready for any of it. I mean, it's a pre-conscious time in my work, and there was a lot of problems with hiring me at the time. Brooke Shields had been cast in Pretty Baby, Louis Maille's movie. There was a lot of scandal around it, and all of America was up in arms that a child should be in a film that has big sexual content. So I had to go through all of these psychological tests and stuff, and we hired a lawyer to try to get me to be able to sign on to the film. People kept saying, "Do you know what a prostitute is?" I was like, I live in Los Angeles. I live 5 blocks from Hollywood Boulevard, and I've seen Visconti movies, and I've seen, Antonioni, and I've seen, my world was so big because of movies. Even though I lived in this very rarefied way, my world was really quite big.
Who was showing you Visconti?
Well, that was my mom. She was my film school. My mom's interest in movies, she always loved movies, of course, but I think a lot of her interest in foreign films was because she never traveled anywhere. She was, raised in the Midwest and had never left the United States until she was 50-something, and it was her way of dreaming. We bought a Peugeot. She put me in a French school. We painted the house terracotta like Rome, and it was her way of feeling like somebody who had lived a wider life.
How wonderful!
Yeah, lucky. It's a great film school.
And where did you see movies in LA? Were you?
Well, yeah, we didn't have DVDs and VHS and all of that yet. So we went to film festivals. There was a film festival in Los Angeles called FilmX that we went to, an international film festival. I remember watching a 6.5-hour German film with puppets. Very serious, dark movie. We watched all the Fassbinder movies. She was a big fan of Marlon Brando. We would go to the Marlon Brando Film Festival and watch every movie over and over again. And very often she would pick me up from school. She would take me to see a foreign film, usually, because she wanted me to be able to speak languages. And then if we liked the movie, we'd see it again. So we'd just sit in the theater, and then we'd see it again. We'd bring dinner and see it again.
Incredible. Keeping on the movie stream, Taxi Driver was such a critical hit, and then it won the Palme d'Or in Cannes, and you went. So that must have been great for you.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if anybody's seen the new Martin Scorsese documentary that Rebecca Miller did. That's on Netflix right now. It's so great. It's just such a treasure, that documentary. But yes, they all went to Cannes. Nobody wanted to bring me because they didn't want to spend the money on me. I was doing another movie. I was doing Freaky Friday at the time. So my mom said, "No, it's really important. She speaks French. This is Cannes. She speaks French." And so we paid for our own flights. The two of us went, and Robert De Niro was there, Harvey Keitel, Martin Scorsese, but they were really paranoid at the time because the film had not come out yet, and people were saying, "Oh, this film is really violent, and maybe it should get an X rating," and there was all this lobbying about what kind of rating it was going to get. And we all did the press conference together, but then after the press conference, they all got too scared, and they wouldn't leave their rooms at the Hotel du Cap. So I ended up doing all the interviews in French for the entire team of Taxi Driver.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that opened your eyes to cinema transcending borders, but clearly, you were already there.
Yeah, and I had made other movies before, and strangely, I'd already been on press tours with another film. So I don't know. It all just seemed. It just seemed natural. It just seemed like this was what I did. And so much of my life was traveling around the country with my mom. You know, I made movies in, Cincinnati and in Columbus, Ohio, and in Georgia, and, all over the country. And we'd go to these little hotels, Holiday Inns, and we had a thing with a mini bar, and we'd put things outside to keep them cold and make food and stuff. And so we just had this whole gypsy life together.
You sounded like such a great team.
Yeah, and it was, that's just how I was raised. Of course, I went to this, very traditional French school and had very serious studies, but then I had this nomad's life.
But then I want to return to studies, and I don't know if that was related to a moment of doubt, or you just wanted to ensure that you had a real education in tandem with your filmmaking, but you went to Yale. And did you stop making films at that time? Did you continue? What was that moment like for you?
No, I made 6 movies while I was in college, which is hard to do. I took, they weren't very good movies, but I took, summers. I worked in the summers, and then I took a semester off. A semester, it ended up being 3 semesters because you had to take 3, whatever. There were reasons for it. So yeah, I worked the whole time that I was in college. I didn't think, my mom kept telling me, it was the right thing to do. She'd say, listen, by the time you're 18, your career will be over. No child actors ever work after 18, your career will be over. What would you like to do with your life? Would you like to be a doctor? Would you like to be a lawyer? Like, as if there were only 2 choices. Right. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess wow, it'll all be over. So when I went to college, I really wanted to direct. But I knew no women directors in America. It just kind of didn't exist. There were European directors, Lina Wertmüller, Margarete van Trotte, the Agnieszka Holland, or some wonderful European filmmakers, but there were no American filmmakers that I knew of. So I thought, oh, I guess I need to write, and I should be a writer because I love reading. So I thought that's what I would do. I thought I would start out being a writer, and then maybe eventually someday down the line I could figure out how to direct.
I'm going to close the loop on Taxi Driver for a moment, but I just want to ask, the scripts that you received afterwards, did you feel that you were being typecast in any way? And how did you avoid that?
Well, I did 2 Disney movies right after Taxi Driver.
So that did that.
So I came out, and Freaky Friday, of course, was a very successful movie at the time. So yeah, once again, it goes back to my mom. It really was her choices for me. I was really not making my own choices. I would read the scripts, of course, and I would read my part, but honestly, I was not making my own choices. It was really it was a vicarious search from my mom. She wanted me to be meaningful. She wanted me to be respected. She didn't want me to be an object. And she wanted me to be a model. She wanted me to be a flash in the pan. Right. So she was very interested in developing my career so that I would have some longevity, potential for longevity, even though she kept telling me my career would be over by the time I was 18. Well, she revised that
didn't
and then she said, actually, it's when you're 40. Once you're 40, that's it. You'll never work again.
And look what happened.
Yeah. When I got close to 40, I started getting nervous. And I started making a lot of movies thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be over any minute. And then, I don't know, it just continued.
I want to talk about your first Oscar.
Okay.
So, The Accused, Jonathan Kaplan, that is a very taxing role. Of course, you play a woman who's sexually assaulted, and then there's a trial to indict the men who are inciting it. How much did you mentally have to prepare for that role? Or not? Maybe I know the answer to this.
You guys are going to think I'm really lazy. I was really lazy before I turned about 28 somehow. I don't think it was lazy. I think I was afraid. I didn't do any mental preparation for that movie. The only thing I did was I went out dancing a lot because I thought that was important. And yeah, I just kind of showed up, having read the script maybe twice. I think I was too worried that if I thought too hard about it, I wouldn't want to do it.
And did the Oscar change your life?
Yeah, it's a funny thing with that movie because I wasn't happy with my performance in the movie. I felt like I was clear about who Sarah Tobias was, and I wished that I could have played her differently, but I wasn't able to. So there were moments during the production where producers, for example, we do reshoots because they didn't like the way my performance was, and they would say, can you reshoot this scene or that scene? And then I just didn't know how to do it differently, and I just felt really stupid. I felt like, oh wow, I'm not very good. And I saw the movie, the first cut of the movie, and in that first cut, it was my worst fear, of course, was that I was terrible in the courtroom sequence. Because I know they wanted some kind of like super teary performance that was just like, and that's not who I am. And I just didn't feel like that's who the character was. And I didn't know how to get there. So they were disappointed. And when I saw the draft, the cut of the film, they had cut it all out. And they'd cut to a flashback, and they'd cut out my entire performance in the courtroom. And I was like, well, yeah, it's because I was so terrible. And I couldn't stand my performance in the movie. I guess it was seeing this character who was quite brash and difficult and angry, and I was uncomfortable with it, my own performance. Yeah, I guess I was, I had this implicit bias and was uncomfortable with her. And then they recut the movie, they put all my scenes back in. I won the Oscar. I thought I was going to go to grad school and going to be a professor. That's what I thought. I was like, okay, well, my career's over, and I'll go to grad school. But then I don't know what happened.
So that was a moment of doubt.
Yes, lots of doubt there. Well, I was also getting a lot of doubt from other people, and I'm a good girl. Like, I want to get A's. I'm not a revolutionary. I don't want to make everybody mad. I wanted to do what people wanted. I wanted to give people what they wanted from me. And it was for the first time in my life I was unable to. And I felt really, I felt bad about it.
Did the discourse around that film change once you won the Oscar?
Yes, and through the process of promoting the movie, I think, the idea, of course, at that time, you have to remember, it's a long time ago, and you make a movie where the question is, does anyone deserve to be raped? If she's too much, she's too loud, she's too obnoxious, she's too drunk, she's too charming, she's too seductive a dancer, too smart, can you put that person in a category of somebody who deserves violence? And that was a genuine question. That was shocking. I mean, isn't that shocking that was a genuine question? But that was a genuine question. And I think the film really, whether you like the movie or not, it's a very simple movie, but it did take people to a new place.
And does the discourse around a film or how it's critiqued, does that affect you? Or do you leave that behind after you've shot the film and you kind of close your ears and...
Well, probably if I hadn't started in the business when I was a kid, and I probably wouldn't read my reviews, and I probably wouldn't, but I don't know, we just did. That's what we did in my family. We read our reviews, we looked at the bad ones, and we're like, oh, well, I kind of agree with that, or... So I never was protected from any of it. And so I guess because I started so young too, and I have a kind of strange vision of myself where I can be inside my body, but also looking at my performance and looking at my body, I don't take it personally. I think there's a lot to learn from criticism, really a lot to learn. And actually, one of the things that Americans do really well is we are very good collaborators. And I was taught to collaborate as a young person. The director would say, I don't want you to sit that way. I want you to try and sit this other way. And I'd be like this or like that? Here, let me give you this choice or that choice. There was a lot of, how can I help you? How can an actor help you? On a movie set where you have 175 people in an American production, for example, the director just doesn't have time to make every single decision. They have to delegate decisions to competent people. In order to do that, they have to communicate their movie. And we are taught to be collaborators. So I have to listen to criticism and reviews and think it through and think like, that makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. I disagree with that, but I'm gonna pull that one in.
Slightly on topic, but also a little different.
Okay.
Some of these films that we've been talking about, but also The Silence of the Lambs, which came afterwards and was your second Oscar, or going back to The Accused, Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
You incarnate characters who are often pushing against a very male-dominated society and world, and in some cases, justice also is in question. And probably on set, you were surrounded by men as well.
Yes.
I'm hoping that was a more nurturing space in some way.
Yes.
How was it that you perceived Clarice Starling, who is your character in Silence of the Lambs? Did you see her immediately as a female hero?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, when you talk about those movies, I was picking all those movies, and they were really, genuine feminist questions that I had. Would I survive intact in this circumstance? If I was Sarah Tobias, would I survive intact? How does a person, against all odds, become a well-adjusted human, despite all of those forces against her? So that was of interest to me. What was the second part of your question?
Just more about her being a female hero.
Yeah, and all these guys. So I was raised on film sets where there were no women. So occasionally there'd be a makeup artist. Mostly those were men, and probably a script supervisor, but otherwise I never saw another woman besides the cast member. So I was raised by fathers and brothers who taught me everything they knew and loved me and believed in me and wanted me to be their prodigal daughter, and they wanted to give me all these opportunities that they would never even consider giving to another woman. They wouldn't even be thinking about women. Like, it kind of just was the way it was, that I never saw another female face, and I never questioned it. So strange. That's just how it was, and I think that at that time, it was a transitional moment for men as well. They wanted to see that tomboy. They wanted to see a strong woman, and they were supportive. There are, lots of areas where there's lots of microaggressions, and that we all have navigated around, all of us, anybody who's my age. But for the most part, I have to be I'm really grateful for those guys for stepping up.
Wonderful. I think now is a good time to show a clip of Silence of the Lambs, please. We cut at the height of drama so that you go see it this week. I was really struck by director Bong Joon-ho's tribute to you last night, and he mentioned something about this film in terms of choices, the choices that you've made in your career and some of the choices that the directors who have worked with you have made, including here in Silence of the Lambs, where Jonathan Demme is approaching Clarice's trauma, her past, without any flashbacks, and it's conveyed across your face in such subtle, amazing, terrifying, sad, devastating ways.
And they scouted all the locations for the flashbacks. And, my friend Mary Tannenbaum was on a plane going all through Montana and Colorado, setting up all the locations and everything. It was at the end of the movie. And Jonathan called her one day and said, "No, I've been in the cutting room and we've decided not to." So,
wow, incredible.
Yeah, they are choices that every filmmaker makes along the way. I mean, this film is such a great movie. But there are so many pieces at work. Just the sound design, for example, which was kind of the first time that sound design had been done, that I remember having been done in films, where the use of these sort of creeping low tones of wind and things to emphasize the idea of silence and her trauma, her sort of, her sound trauma. But also the way we shot with these, it was 35 millimeter, of course, so it was a time before digital, but with these very shallow kind of lenses that you would go in and out of being in focus and not in focus. The idea of the first point of view, the point of view being inside the camera that comes from Hitchcock, that the audience just gets used to. They just get used to this idea that people talk to each other through the lens. The Christy Zia's design of that beautiful, weird cage in the center of an armory. All of those things contribute, all of those collaborations, and I think, of course, not just Ted Talley, the screenwriter, but Thomas Harris, the novelist, everybody's best work was on display, and we all know that we were never as good ever again.
And how was it working with Anthony Hopkins?
Oh, lovely, such a lovely guy. But he was scary, he was scary at that time, and I didn't have a lot of chance to talk to him before we started shooting. He was making another movie, so he only came in for a couple of weeks, and they'd put him in his cage, and then we'd do his stuff direct to camera. So I wasn't necessarily there. I was behind the camera, but he was looking into the lens. And then the next day, maybe we'd have these long dialogue scenes where I'd be looking into the lens. So we never really got to talk to each other. And then we got to the end of the movie and realized that we were both really scared of each other. And he said to me, I remember I was eating a tuna fish sandwich, and he said to me, I was really scared of you. And I said, I was really scared of you too. And then we became friends after that.
Amazing. So incredibly, that same year, 1991, you released your first directed film, Little Man Tate.
Yep.
What an incredible year. We do have a clip. I'd like to go to that immediately because I'm afraid we're running out of time.
Okay, sorry. I'll be short.
No. We want to hear these stories. So you said that you had always wanted to direct.
Yes.
Why did it come to at that moment right there?
Yes, I'd always wanted to direct, but I never thought I'd have the opportunity. I did like a little short when I was 14 or 15. I read this script kind of out of a slush pile, actually. And I think they wanted me to act in it. And I said, I will act in it if I can direct it. Franny and Zoe was my favorite book, the J.D. Salinger book, and I'd always wanted to make a movie about the idea of a prodigy or a wild child, you know, a person of demonstrable intelligence and yet who's lacking in so many other ways. So.
Many of the critics also made parallels between your life and this film in terms of your precocity and intelligence.
Thanks.
Do you consider your films personal?
Oh yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more autobiographical, really, except that none of the plot has anything to do with me. But other than that, it was, very much, and I worked a lot with the writer, with Scott Frank, who's a very good friend, who went on, this was his first movie he wrote as an undergrad at UC Santa Barbara, and so we worked a lot on the screenplay together. We were both the same age, and he went on to, of course, to become one of the biggest writers in Hollywood, and he wrote like Saving Private Ryan and Minority Report, and then went on to do so many things. The Anya Taylor-Joy chess movie, wonderful. You guys all remember who that is. Yeah, Queen's Gambit, and he's an extraordinary director and a really good friend, and we've been friends ever since.
What was the greatest challenge in making your first film?
Well, acting and directing together at the same time is hard. And for a first movie, that's really hard. And then, of course, to have a 7-year-old who's never acted a day in his life was also hard. So it was probably a dumb thing to have undertaken. But strangely, all of that went really well. I think when you don't know any better, you kind of just don't know any better. I made sure that for my second movie, I didn't act in it.
But then you do again in The Beaver.
Yeah, I acted in The Beaver, but then I didn't again in Money Monster. So
You're going to alternate.
I go back and forth, yeah.
Just to move things along a little bit, I'd like to talk about, maybe you might not see it that way, but many people have written about a certain phase where they see you taking on more action films.
Oh.
Would you not see it that way?
I'm not sure I would call them action films, but there was a lot of action in them, and I have to say, I love, that's my favorite thing. I like running and jumping, and I like at the end of the day to feel like I actually did something instead of just talked.
A big budget. I want to talk about Contact. We have a clip of that as well. Let's run the clip for Contact, please.
I don't know. I don't know what that looks like today because there was no CGI. There was just green screen. That was it. We didn't have any digital technology at all. Yeah. So it's quite amazing, actually, that Robert Zemeckis was able to achieve what he was able to achieve.
I want to talk about the alternating that you did between making auteur films and more mainstream films and how you balanced that along in your career.
Yeah, I guess there were some particular choices with that. I mean, my goal was to make movies that touched people, and I wanted to touch as many people as possible, but I also wanted to elevate the experience and to have films that were able to have that were challenging and that had an intellectual approach in some ways, and that also had this strong emotional component. And yeah, I wanted to make mainstream movies. I felt like I was a mainstream actor, but I was interested in things that were maybe less mainstream.
So when you're on a big film like this, because I know you've talked about observing directors, as you are a director, and you've learned a lot that way as well, are you privy to the big mechanisms that play here, or not so much?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a collaboration. We're all together. I was telling director Bong yesterday that a lot of things people don't know is that the original director for Contact was George Miller, Australian George Miller of Babe and Mad Max and Lorenzo's Oil and all these amazing movies, extraordinary director. And his version of the film, of course, was very, very different. He was gone from the movie, he left from the movie, I stayed. And when Robert Zemeckis came in, he took a full year to completely re-examine everything about this script and to turn it into a Robert Zemeckis movie. So that was really quite a wonderful thing to see a George Miller movie become a Robert Zemeckis movie.
I rewatched it recently, and then I had echoes of The Accused and other roles. There's a complete there's a trial where you're laying out, what you've seen that nobody believes you, and you're, trying to convince a group of men again.
Yes.
So here you are, a brilliant scientist in a man's world. This seems to recur a lot.
Well, yeah, because I have to play women, so there you go. I mean, when people say, like, were there some roles that you missed out on that you wish that you would have done? I was like, well, Lawrence of Arabia would have been nice. Or, Network, or, any number of movies that were the human experience where women were not privy. It actually was quite amazing that Contact was written for a woman. It was written for a woman because Carl Sagan wrote the original novel. Actually, he wrote a screenplay. He wrote it as a screenplay first. It was a terrible screenplay. And he was like, well, I'm never doing that again. And he made it as a novel. That took 10 years, and then this happened. And I think that was why I took this on, not because it was a CG movie or because it was a big epic mainstream movie, but because it really challenged important ideas about where spirituality and science come together. And I think of all the characters that I've ever played, Ellie Arroway is the most me of every character, right? Somebody who is driven, ambitious, wants to have meaning in her life, and is a solitary figure, and is, in some ways is so disconnected from this world because she's moving towards a world that feels bigger and more meaningful, and has to come to terms with the awe of all the unknown. So it's a pretty smart movie, despite all of the pyrotechnics.
And since a young age, you see her as a child at the beginning, so there's that lineage as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was called a brainy blockbuster,
Yes.
for what that's worth.
Yeah, I did some other brainy blockbusters too. I mean, you talked about my action films. I did tend to play a lot of women who were saving their children. That I did. But there's something important about that very simple, heroic journey that women had not, at least in my generation, had not been privy to. And so it was a slightly revolutionary act to put a woman, or to say, what does a female human look like when they're the hero of their story?
Right. But you haven't been in that many women's films.
Not many when?
Films directed by women.
Right. I did only one in like 45 years. And then in the last 4 films, they've all been women.
Incredible.
So.
And we will get to Rebecca's film very shortly. And you as a woman would know why that is.
Well, they just weren't, there were none, and they weren't offered. And when you looked at really up until 15 years ago, when you look at the list for mainstream movies and you go down their director's list, I never saw a female name. Never, not once. And the idea of, which is understandable, right? If you're making a movie that has a certain risk attached to it, so let's say you're making a film that costs, well, now it would cost $125 million or something. They would say, well, there's no woman that's directed a movie that cost $125 million. And then you'd say, I wonder why that is. So the idea was not to give women these huge mega movies if they had not had any experience. How about giving women the experience first? So the same way you do with kindergarten, where there are 10 boys and then there are 10 girls, and everybody has to get educated. And so in kindergarten, there's 20 kids, 10 of them are boys and 10 of them are girls. We have yet to make that happen for young filmmakers.
Do you want to make more films?
Well, yeah, I want to make more films. I'll be making films till I die. You can't get rid of me that fast.
I don't think anybody's looking to do that. You'll have to forgive a personal indulgence.
Sure.
I'm also a big fan of David Fincher.
Yes,
You
me
made
too.
Panic Room. We're going to show one scene from that film.
Sure. So the two very interesting things is that I was completely pregnant in that film. I started off, well, because I got hired very quickly, and I started off at whatever, and by the end of the movie, I was 6 months pregnant because it's the longest movie I've ever made. Longest movie I've ever made with five people in the dark in one building. Yeah, David Fincher, who, and I'm sure all of you love David Fincher as much as I do. I think I've never learned as much from any director as from David Fincher. He is a film school all unto himself.
He has the reputation of being very meticulous.
Yes, and I love it. I would do anything for him. Anything for him. And if he wants me to stand on my head, I'm happy with that. But yeah, it can be difficult, right? So sometimes, you'll have that last shot where they threw the Dopp kit was 120 takes on that one shot. And 120 takes.
Okay.
Last day of shooting, last shot.
We're gonna let that one. I'm not. No comment.
He was nice to me, though. I didn't have as much trouble with that.
I mean, the filmic architecture of this film is quite amazing, and I've seen it several times. And then the camera work. I think it was Darius Khondji. Was it?
It was Darius Khondji for half of it, and then it was somebody else for the other half. Yes.
Got it. Okay. But I think what's so great about this film is that it seamlessly traverses several genres. It's thriller. It has some high comedy moments. There's some, obviously family moments, and it's slippery in a way.
It is, and it's one of those screenplays. It's a 90-page screenplay that is so intelligent and so well crafted. Probably David Koepp, one of the greatest screenwriters of our time, decided to make this little like knife in the water. So. Like Roman Polanski's movie Knife in the Water, that's all action, and yet everything that you reveal about the character gets revealed through that action.
Right. And Forrest Whitaker is incredible here.
Yes.
He really is.
Yeah, and little Kristen Stewart.
I was just going to say, and of course that's Kristen Stewart,
right.
Who, like you, is a child actor.
Yeah, also a very specific moment in my life. I was really pregnant, and I had already had a son, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this next baby will be like. And here I am stuck in a closet with, an 11-year-old. For months and months and months and months, and I just got such a kick out of her. I was like, I wonder who this kid's going to be when she grows up, and of course, secretly, it was like, maybe I'll have a daughter, and they'll be just like her.
And then, of course, she's just made her own feature film.
Yes, Chronology of Water.
Year.
Yes,
exactly.
Just recently.
So I'm wondering, you've talked about the support you've gained from men on set because there weren't very many women amongst actresses. Has there been mentorship in Hollywood?
Mentorship, I don't know that I felt a lot of mentorship with actors and actresses, but I always feel like, how you see all these movies where women are like, hate each other, and they're just like cat fights, and they're always trying to get one another, and I just have never encountered that in my life. I certainly have never encountered that in the movie business, ever. If anything, I think the women are really on each other's side because they know how few opportunities there are. And as I get older, I feel even more of a community with women in the film industry, actresses in the film industry. So yeah, I don't know about mentorship. It's kind of hard with actors. Like, how do you mentor another actor? I'm not really sure. I know that I do with child actors. I do find myself reaching out to the young child actors of this era because I feel for them, and I feel like, wait, where are their parents? And why is somebody not telling them that they should, stop doing so many movies, or that they should, maybe not be so drunk on the red carpet, or, I want to take care of them because I know how dangerous it is.
But also, you're someone who's navigated fame in such an elegant way, and you've protected your privacy to some degree. And now I think about social media and how all of that has changed. How have you managed to remain so private?
Well, it was a different time. We didn't have those big long lenses, out the windows, and people didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have celebrity culture the way it is now, and the way it has been for the last, 15, 20 years. That's a really recent phenomenon, and I don't know how people do it now. I don't know why anybody would want to be an actor now. If they knew that in order to be excellent, they would have to contend with being robbed of their life in a way. I don't know how you make sense of that except to have, I think, what my mom helped me do, which is to have this very firm delineation between your private life and your public life. And even right now, I've been on the road for a little while with Vie Privée and talking to people and going to film festivals. Like, there's a part of me that starts feeling very insecure when I'm not either working or in my pajamas at home. So very soon I will be in my pajamas at home.
Everybody needs some alone time. You need to recuperate and find yourself.
Yeah, and have some sense of who you are. Of course, it's a weird thing being an actor, and having people project things on you. And I think I understand it more because I've done that my whole life, and I had to survive intact. So in order to do that, I had to really have that delineation.
You seem so grounded, and from a very young age.
Yeah, I guess so. As a kind of as a survival mechanism. Yeah.
Well, we mentioned private life and vie privée. I think this is a perfect setup. Can you please roll the clip for vie privée? This is also a film that blends tones and genres in a really interesting way, with bits of Hitchcock and then romantic comedy, the psychoanalysis. I'm sure Rebecca sought you out for the role. What interested you in playing Lillian Schneider?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of it, is that is that Rebecca is able to kind of have lots of different genres exist in one piece. That has a serious side to it, an intellectual side to it, that asks big questions, and then also doesn't take itself too seriously. That has a light side to it too. I just loved the script. I thought Rebecca just wrote, and Anne Barrest, of course, wrote an absolutely beautiful script, and it was a script that had momentum, that had big questions, and I have been dying to do a French film in French for a long time. I've done a few in my life, but only little small roles, so this was kind of an opportunity to do something bigger. And we really saw eye to eye, and she put together such a miraculous cast. I just can't believe how blessed I am and how blessed we are.
It's such a great ensemble cast, and I love every role, every scene with you and Daniel Auteuil. It's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, the second I met him, he really felt like he was my brother, like we had known each other forever. Because of course I've been looking at his face for, 30, 40 years, and so I did feel like I knew him.
And of course you're fluent in French. Your French is impeccable, and you have worked with Chabrol and Jeunet in smaller roles, and this is a almost fully French role.
Yep.
How does it make you feel different to act in French? Does that bring a certain vulnerability or?
I do feel like I sound different in French, so I have a higher voice in French, and I am not as sure of myself. And I guess that makes me a little more insecure, a little more vulnerable, because I'm always worried that I'm not going to be able to find the right words or communicate myself well. So I get nervous, which I don't normally. I just don't get nervous. So it was interesting.
And would you be looking to make more foreign films?
Sure. I mean, I'd love to make another movie in French, of course, because I do feel like it's a part of my personality that I just never get to use. And half my culture, because I went to a French school. But I have made movies in other places. I made a movie in Italy, and I've made a movie in Germany, and lots in UK. So I love the global family of making films, and wherever you go, it feels like they're the same people wearing the same jeans and complaining about coffee at 3 a.m. But it also allows me to open up and learn a new culture too.
We're almost out of time,
Sure.
But I do want to mention your role recently on True Detective.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you've just starred in a big TV show, which has been very successful.
Yeah, streaming is able to do things that we're not able to do in traditional mainstream movies anymore, right? So real narrative now in the United States is on streaming. Big franchise superhero movies are what you see in the movie theaters, but really the real narrative is on streaming.
So if you look back, so if we unbox again,
Okay.
I'm afraid, and you look at all the phases that you've worked within,
Yes.
but also the industry and how that changed, whether it's auteur's 70s and then the mainstream blockbusters to streaming and television, what is it that excites you and alarms you at the point in which we are now?
Well, yeah, I got, I was so lucky to have been able to live, just to be dropped into the 1970s, which is our golden age in American cinema, and, the anti-heroes and all of those auteur directors. I was just lucky. I was just a kid who was in the right place. Where are we headed? I am embracing this idea of there being these two opposite ends of the industry, one which is mainstream Hollywood, mainstream distributor films, and more independent films on the other end, which are is entirely similar to the independent industry that you have in Europe and in other places. And then streaming, which has really taken up the mantle of narrative. You're able to tell 8-hour stories or 5-season stories where you can explore every angle in a way that you could never in a feature. So I love the fact, that freedom of that. And in terms of, whether we're gonna be, people's attention spans and their viewing habits have changed, they have. COVID changed everyone's viewing habit. We knew it was coming. We already knew that there was gonna be this, in some ways, the end of traditional mainstream theater viewing, but it happened quickly. So I think that's the part that's difficult for us. That the viewing experience of being in a movie theater with your community is changing.
It's changing, but it's not over. I'm going to mount a defense.
Yes.
As a Cinematheque baby,
Yeah.
the audiences are young, they're fulsome.
That's right.
And I think they can coexist.
I hope so. I hope so. I like to pop in and out of all different kinds of movie making. And I found something in streaming that I, wasn't able to do. I mean, if you think about Scorsese's movie with Lily Gladstone, which one? Yes, Killer's Flower Moon. Okay, so Scorsese made a 45-minute, almost 4-hour movie, Killers in the Flower Moon. Taken from a book and all of that, where he wanted to explore the experience of Native America at that time. And what we had was a very interesting movie about two guys who go back and forth and they talk to each other. It's kind of like those mafia movies. And I think everybody was sort of, excited that that the Native, the story was going to be told. And what they found was wow, all the Native women are dead. And what they said was well, it's a feature, we didn't have time. But there was time. There was an 8-hour limited series that was not made, that could have been made, where if you really needed to explore all of that male toxic masculinity, you could have done that, but you could have had episode 2 actually centered the Native story. And with that, I think with True Detective, I feel very proud that my character and other characters were able to support a Native story where those ideas, those voices that we've barely heard were centered.
I think we just have more options now to explore.
We have more options, and I cannot wait until, we had Vinyl, with Scorsese, which was amazing, but I can't wait until he embraces that even more, because he has so much to bring to the table. So many filmmakers have so much to bring to the table, but they have this idea of, oh wait, I just want to make a feature, but I don't want to make an 1 and 45-minute feature. I want to make a 5-hour feature. And you're like, why? Then why are we still doing that in the theater? So.
Well, Berlin Alexanderplatz was
That's
made
true.
for TV.
That's true, yeah.
Are
And
these
there are
models
two-parters. There are other models, and we have started embracing all new models. And it's just, there is room for everyone, and I hope that we continue to recognize that.
On that point, we're going to open it up to the audience for a few questions. It's hard for us to see up here. Right here in the front row.
Hello.
Hi, Jodie. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
And honestly, you're truly an icon of cinema. So congratulations.
Thanks.
I know you said that you love food in a movie, so I've got a juicy one for you.
Okay.
So if you were to invite any of your past characters to a meal in a movie, who would it be? What would you eat and watch? And what advice would you give to each other?
Oh, wow. Well, for starters, I definitely want it to be a Moroccan meal where we all sat around something round together, right? Gosh. I did a lot of solitary movies where I wasn't around a whole bunch of people. It was always like my movie with just me. And I'm really enjoying making films that are about relationships, that are with more people and that are more ensemble oriented. So there was a movie I made in the 80s called Hotel New Hampshire, John Irving book, and Tony Richardson directed. And I think I'd like to go back there because I had so much fun making that movie. It was the first time that I'd ever made a movie with a bunch of kids. And we were all 20 years old. We were all living in Montreal. And we were all just going out dancing every night, getting no sleep. There was lots of scandals all over the place. And yeah, I think that, you know, and they were a family. So they were a family. I think that would be what I would do. Yeah. Little Moroccan meal with the...
Bonjour, Jodie. Hi, Jodie.
Hi.
My name is Alyssa Cassini, and I'm a violinist.
Oh, great.
Juilliard grad. Je parle français. Je suis
D'accord.
franco-américaine comme toi. Ma mère, my mom from Cincinnati, Ohio, moved to France when I was a kid. Lots in common. I came here, flew here to meet you.
Oh.
I know your face. I wanted you to know
Okay.
mine. Would you accept if I gave you a letter that I wrote for you to read?
Sure. Do you have a question, too?
I have many questions.
Okay. Do you have a one question?
Well, would you be interested in making a film about the inner world of a violinist between?
Interesting. Well, Rebecca can tell you that I'm a terrible musician because
I heard you sing.
Yes, you saw me fake play the cello in Vie Privée, and it was truly not good. I mean, it probably looked okay, but it didn't sound good. So, anyways, thank you. Yes, well, I'll read that. Thank you.
Can we take a question right here? Yes. The fourth row. Sorry.
Hello, Mrs. Foster.
Yes.
Thank you for this very interesting and deep conversation. As an Italian, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What do you remember of the shooting of Casotto with Sergio Scitti in Italy,
gosh.
which is a very Italian and even in
Yes.
Italy a bit forgotten film?
Yes. I'm not sure how great the movie was, but it was crazy and so much fun. So it was directed by Franco Citti. No, was it? Yeah. Sergio Citti, and then Franco Citti was in it. Mariangela Melato, very famous, Swept Away. I think Catherine Deneuve is in it. Flora Mastroianni, Ugo Tonassi, Gigi Proietti, Michele Placido. It's an incredible cast. It's a crazy idea, which is, you know those little cabanas in Italy on the beach? It's just like a little tiny thing, just like a little tiny cabana, and it's all these characters that come in and out of this cabana, but the camera never leaves the inside. It does for 1 minute where a character makes a hole for the camera and the camera can look through, but it's it's a crazy movie. I'll never forget making it. I was in Rome and, you know, enjoyed the experience.
Who's up here in the corner? This woman right there. I don't know how we're going to get all these.
Hey, Jodie.
Hello.
Great. Big fan of your work.
Thank you.
You were incredible in True Detective Season 4.
Oh, thanks.
And I was wondering, how different was your experience producing and acting in television than in cinema?
You know, it really wasn't different at all. It was like making a big, long movie. But I think that's because we only had one showrunner, one director. That was Isa Lopez, Mexican director, wonderful woman I just adore. And I was there for 7 months. She was there for a year in Iceland. The winter in Iceland. It was just like no other experience, I think. HBO was fantastic. We all got along. We all liked each other. It was, it was sort of a life-changing experience. I think I learned so much. Mostly, you know, being able to figure out how to be in a movie that felt genuinely Native. So it wasn't just Native Americans from Alaska, Inuit from Alaska, but it was also Native people from Greenland and from northern Canada and, you know, from all over the world who coming together to have the showrunner director just really listen to their stories and to have them fully collaborate and to fully be a part of the process. So it was just fantastic.
Can we have a question or a microphone right here?
Hello. We met before.
Yes.
But I'm curious about this thing. You said that your mom basically chose your career.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what happened when you had kids. I mean, how did it work? Because they were the kids of a movie star. But you had your own experience that someone else chose for you, and you were lucky and successful. But how did it work? If you want to share, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she chose my early movies, and then there came a point where she went off and did her own thing, when I was ready to kind of launch and do it all myself. Yeah, I had an idea about how I wanted to raise kids, and I really wanted them to have a normal life, and maybe because I didn't have a normal life. So there was this whole romance that I had with the idea of, going to school every day and only going on vacation, for a week and a half in the winter and, a month in the summer, and doing all the things that American kids do. So that was, and I think I didn't work a lot when they were young, and I kept from them that I was an actor. I didn't do it on purpose, but they just didn't ask. They didn't say, "Mom, what do you do for a living?" So I sort of never told them. And I think that was a really good thing, that they did not really grow up in the middle of the film industry. Now I have one child who's an actor. He's 27, living in Brooklyn, starving, having his beginning of his career. And then my other son is in grad school for science. So they're two very, very different guys.
Question right here.
Hello.
Hello.
The amazing Brazilian actress who dubs your voice since the 90s
Ooh.
once told me that she took months to recover from Clarice Starling. How was your recovery from that character?
Oh my
and
gosh.
if you could tell us a few words about the process with Jonathan Dean.
Wow, that's wonderful. I love it that there are actors out there who dub my voice in other languages, and they've been doing it on every film all those years. I dubbed a lot of my movies in French for many, many, many years. But it's always interesting to meet those actors and to thank them for their performances. I loved working with Jonathan Demme, and I loved making that movie. And we were really a big, happy family. It was not all horrible. We had a lot of fun making that film in Pittsburgh. Jonathan Demme just was a really special person for me. And I'm so sad that we lost him so young. I always say that he was the greatest feminist director that I worked with. He was always the person that was most interested by the characters who were marginalized, most interested by the underdog, by the person who were left out, and not necessarily the person on top. So we'll miss him.
We have time for just a few more. You can clap for Jonathan Demme, absolutely. Okay, let's go towards the back middle.
It's not going to be me, it's for my phone.
Okay. Hi there.
Hi. I hope you can see me. I'm
I
pretty
see
big.
you.
Good. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to be in the same room as you.
Oh, thanks.
I'm so happy to be so many foreigners. I'm Moroccan myself, but it's just great to see so many people here. My question to you would be, because I'm an aspiring actor and director,
Great.
how did you make the leap from being an actor to a director? It's obvious that acting isn't your favorite thing in the world,
Yeah.
but then at least when you're an actor, you only have one job in a way. But
Yeah.
being a director is that's a huge leap, at least for me. And how did you make it from your comfort zone as an actor to a huge director? Thank you.
Yeah, I was very lucky because I'd been in the industry for such a long time that I already kind of had an in. And when I found the script for Little Man Tate, what I said to them is, I will act in the movie if I can direct it. So since I was a pretty famous actor already, it was to their benefit in terms of risk. If I hadn't come to the table with anything, I probably would never have been given that opportunity. But I was able to come and say, I will work for free, or I will work for scale, and I'll bring these other actors to the table. Diane Wiest, for example, and I was able to get Harry Connick Jr., somebody who's really sought after at that time. And I'll make this very small budget independent movie with me starring in it. So that's kind of how I did it. Yeah.
Negotiated well.
Negotiated, yes.
Back, right there. Yep.
Oh, wow. You're so beautiful.
Thanks.
I want to ask you one question.
Sure.
do you feel responsible for opening doors for the next generation of women in cinema? Thank you. You're so
Whoa.
beautiful.
Wow. Well, I wish I had taken on that responsibility earlier. As I said, I feel kind of guilty that I made all these movies for all these years with all men, and I never questioned it. I just never looked around and said, this is strange. It just didn't seem strange. That's just how the way it was. And I know a lot of people who are my age who worked in industries where there were no women, I think probably felt the same way. They just were like, oh, I guess this is just how it is. And now, of course, and as all these years forward, and I had a production company, and I worked with, I produced movies with other women, and brought up first-time women directors, and that feels so good. It feels so good to see new work being made, and work that, of course, reflects our culture, our female culture, the way that we were raised. There's a lot of discussion about, the male gaze and the female gaze, and it's true. We come from different cultures, the same way that if you were raised in Morocco, and let's say you lived on a farm or something, it would be different than somebody who's raised in Belgium making shoes. Like, they're just two different things. And so I really embrace our differences and love seeing new voices, new perspectives, and new points of view. And I always talk about, my favorite, female gaze movie, which is The Portrait of a Woman on Fire by Céline Sciamma, who's a good friend of Rebecca's. And to me, that's the perfect movie. So if there was a movie to be taught about what it is to have a female point of view as a director, and what those differences are, if there was a class to be taught, I would always bring that forward.
Okay, wait.
Oh. Thanks, of course. Thanks for sharing your genius with us.
Oh, gosh.
You're quite remarkable.
Oh, thanks.
So much mentioned early on about the early days of your life with your mother.
Yeah.
And there's one reference to your dad and your brothers. What about the role? Who was your father? What role did
I
he
didn't know
play?
my father, although I knew where he lived and stuff. But I ran into him a couple of times in my life. But I've never known my father. So they got divorced right before I was born. Their divorce was final before I was born. Although I have 3 brothers and sisters, they're all older than me. So he was not a part of my life, and it was important for him and for my mom that he not be a part of my life. My brother was an actor, and he was my older brother. I really looked up to him. He was a child actor, kind of a famous child actor. He did 2 series that were very successful in the United States. And then he hit a certain age where it's awkward to go on to be an actor, a regular actor, and it was the early 70s, and his hair was long, and then suddenly he was, a surfer, and he was getting tattoos, and his career ended, and he went off and had a happy life. Yeah.
We have time for just a few more, I'm afraid. Okay. Okay, we'll do both of you.
Yeah, we'll do both. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
If your life were to be a movie, which it partially is,
Uh-huh.
what would be the technique, the advice, or even the story that someone, either whether it be in this field, which is cinema, or from your family, or a random person, would have told you that kind of changed the way you work, whether it be in acting or directing?
So if my life was a movie,
Yeah.
yes, what movie would it be? No. What type of movie?
What's the story or
The
advice
story.
that someone in the movie,
Yeah.
a character, told you that changed your way of working in a way?
Oh, that's complicated. I don't know. Gosh, I'm not really sure. I have this. I have grown up on screen, and that's strange because I think I want to communicate myself to people. right? I want people to know me. That's why I make movies, right? Like, please, this is what I care about here. And yet, there's a part of me that wants to have an exquisitely authentic experience that is not shared with others. And it's a strange combination of things. So, for example, if I'm lying in a pool of fake blood, I say fake blood, right? In Central Park at 3 in the morning, and there's 125 people around me, and there's a guy with a boom, and there's a this with a that. There's something really strange about, I'm moving because somebody says move 3 inches to the right, at how I can have this incredibly authentic experience that no one can take from me, that only I understand, and still be surrounded by all this artifice. I don't know, there's something about making stories that feels more true than living life. I'm not sure why. That probably tells you how messed up I am. But I don't know. What movie would it be? I don't know. Maybe it's like My Life as a Dog or something.
We have time for one final question.
Yes.
Hello, Madame Jodie Foster.
Bonjour.
Je m'appelle Louise Caruana.
Oui.
Je suis au théâtre du Lab à Marrakech.
Génial.
C'est un lab que donc Sophie Lebert, c'est une comédienne et en fait
Oui.
elle est professeure de théâtre et c'est notre prof.
Génial.
J'avais une question pour vous. Qu'est-ce que c'est pour vous la chose la plus, en tant que réalisatrice, vraiment la chose qui vous passionne, vraiment en tant que dans le cinéma et vraiment dans la réalisation?
Enfin, moi, ce que j'aime, surtout, c'est... Je réponds en anglais ou en français? En français, ça va. C'est que, enfin, moi, je pense que tous les personnages sont une partie de moi. Et chaque fois que je fais un choix pour un personnage, que ça soit le mauvais, que ça soit le bon dans le film, que ça soit la personnage romantique ou même le petit garçon dans le film, je demande une seule question, c'est est-ce que c'est vrai ou est-ce que c'est faux? C'est tout. Vraiment, si j'ai une méthode, c'est la seule que j'ai. C'est de demander au fond de votre cœur, au fond de vous-même, chaque fois que vous faites un choix, est-ce que c'est vrai ou est-ce que c'est faux? Si c'est faux, il ne faut pas le faire. Si c'est vrai, oui. Et pour moi, c'est ça, entrer dans les peaux des personnages. Les metteurs en scène doivent faire ça. D'ailleurs, c'est peut-être, c'était pas vous, mais quelqu'un d'autre m'avait demandé s'il y avait une différence entre les metteurs en scène qui sont femmes et les metteurs en scène qui sont hommes. En général, non. Mais quand j'étais toute seule, j'étais une petite fille toute jeune, ou même une femme, les metteurs en scène, ils n'avaient pas trop d'opinion sur moi. Ils disaient oui, je comprends pas très bien ce que tu fais, mais vas-y, fais-le. Hein, ils étaient à part. Mais moi, je pense que c'est le travail d'un metteur en scène de rentrer dans dans les peaux des personnages, d'entrer dans les peaux des personnages et regarder et se dire qu'est-ce que je vois, et qu'est-ce que je ressens. Est-ce que je me sens mal à l'aise avec cet homme-là? Est-ce que j'ai un fou folie d'humour? Ou est-ce que j'ai envie d'être petite et rétrécie? C'est ça le travail d'un metteur en scène. Et c'est un travail que les femmes font très bien. Hein, parce qu'ils savent... Ils n'ont pas peur de rentrer dans les personnages et de demander des questions. Et les hommes sont malheureusement, peut-être traditionnellement, n'ont pas reçu cette sorte d'éducation. Ils n'ont pas reçu l'éducation de vouloir vraiment écouter, vraiment communiquer. C'est plutôt, ils ont reçu l'éducation de dominance. Alors nous avons we have a leg up, comme on dit, on a un avantage dans la mise en scène.
Jodie, it's been such a privilege and an honor and a pleasure listening to you speak to us today. And you're definitely welcome back to Marrakech anytime. And thank you again for being here.
Enjoy your festival experience.